Thanks for checking out this movie review video. This is for the 2024 release, Daddy's Head. It's a Shudder original, and it's coming to Shudder on Friday, October 11th. So this is a no spoiler review. Gonna get right into it. This one is written and directed by Benjamin Barfoot, who directed Double Date and Panorama. This is a film from the UK, just so you know, so there's some UK accents at play here. So quick synopsis on this one. What is it about? It's about a woman and child, not initially related. The child's father passes away, who is then leaving him, as well as this child's stepmother, and it's how they're kind of forced together after that. But then as they're kind of living together and trying to figure out how to A, deal with their own grief in their own ways, and B, deal with each other and become closer, because you get the idea very early on that they're not that close, and that kind of gets played with a lot throughout the film. There's horror things happening as they're living in this house that's pretty secluded, which obviously, a lot of horror films will be like, this secluded house where, if things are going on that are kind of creepy or someone's breaking in or whatever, there's no way to get help, or it's a lot harder to do that. That's at play here. But yeah, I don't want to tell you too much, because the actual horror aspect of it, by telling a little bit, could be telling you way too much anyway. So that's the setup premise. If it sounds interesting, maybe you're interested. I would say that I wasn't wild about this film, but there were some things I really did enjoy. But obviously, I'm going to talk about both those things in this review. First off is the opening cinematography is beautiful. Cinematography in general within this film, very well done. Very, very, very well done. It looks awesome. A lot of very interesting shot selection, some great camera movements, also some good set design that helps with the shots, making them look even more interesting and engaging. They do have kind of this leached palette thing going on that a lot of independent horror films tend to do, which I'm not the biggest fan of, but it's not leached as much as a lot of films do, so it's not too far in that direction. But yeah, looks great. Outstanding cinematography. You get the feeling within the first 15 minutes that this is going to be a slow one, and when I got that feeling, I was 100% correct. The pacing of this film is not very good, in my opinion, and that's one of my biggest issues. Now, a lot of the times I'm willing to kind of write that stuff off if the film gives me a really awesome payoff at the end. Or if, like a film like The Devil's Bath that came out earlier this year, you realize eventually, like I did, well after I had actually watched the film, and some people had told me this, you realize that the slow pacing is actually a very integral part of the experience. Then I'm down with that. But I will say, the slow pacing with this one is not integral for the experience for the film, and the story, just the length and how much story is there, those things don't match up, unfortunately. The story setup seems full of cliches, so the hope is that they will put an interesting twist on this story that you've seen play out countless times. Now, I will say it has its own take on this, so it is unique in certain ways. That said, I don't think it goes far enough. I don't think it adds enough interesting stuff. I don't think it adds enough unique things. It had some good ideas here, and that's basically what the script is comprised of. Some very cliched setups, some very cliched situations with some interesting ideas thrown in here and there, but it never amounts to an overall interesting or unique or awesome story, unfortunately. Idea, yes, but in actuality, how the script came out, not really, unfortunately. But there are some cool moments, I will say, for sure. And like I said, cinematography is great. The acting is pretty good. I didn't really find many issues with the acting. A few scenes here and there where one or two of the actors kind of like they falter a little bit, but not too bad at all. Quite solid acting in this. There are some cool visual sequences, which I really did like, which not only do they just look cool, but they're kind of creepy, they're kind of scary, so I think they had a good grasp on how to make those things happen. I just wish they were doing that a lot more in this film, because like I said, there's very slow pacing. So one of the great things you could end up doing to kind of help with that slow pacing and not having a whole lot of story to tell if you're trying to stretch it out is to have a lot of interesting visuals, have a lot of interesting, creepy, scary moments in the film. And they just were too few and far between in this film for my liking. The score composition and volume gets pretty annoying at times, unfortunately. Uh, Not the entire time. Every now and then, the composition becomes overly repetitive and simplistic, and it's the combination of that with them just cranking it so loud, so it's just like screaming at you, and in the most annoying way possible. And it takes you out of the experience of the film and just makes you like, man, that is so annoying. Like when a score is being noticed, not because it's really good or because it's appropriate, but because it's like just blaring at you and you're just like, take this down. Yeah, it's not great. And this is, it may not bother some other people. This is something I harp on all the time. I am a very big advocate for less is more when it comes to scores. Composition wise, not necessarily, but volume wise with the score, 100%. Just kind of have it in there like lightly, and it really helps people kind of feel a little bit what you're trying to convey with that music without screaming at them in the face, because then it becomes overkill. It's just too much. Shooting locations are quite nice, and there's some good set design to go along with those shooting locations. Going back to how good this film looks, there's a house that they shoot at in this one that looks phenomenal, looks extremely expensive and very nice. And then once you get outside of that, you see the property is also very large and nice looking. So yeah, some great things to look at. It starts to feel like the same cycle repeating, of something happens and then you get similar scenes to what you've already seen before until something else happens. So it feels like even though the script isn't necessarily a formula itself, once they started writing the script, they started getting into this formulaic sequence where they're like, okay, now we have these scenes that go like this between these characters. Now we have something kind of like creepy, scary happen. Then we go back to doing these same types of scenes that we've already done with these same characters. Then we go to something creepy again. And it just kept going over and over and over again. It's what it felt like. You just weren't getting a whole lot of new stuff. It felt like the story wasn't really progressing, unfortunately. So, and that really adds to the pacing issue. There's a bit of payoff at the end of this film, but the pacing is just so rough for this film, in my opinion. And plus, like I said, I just don't think that they went big enough with the idea they had with how they wanted to wrap things up with this film. So for me, I didn't love it. I didn't totally hate it, but out of 5 stars, half stars in play, I'm going to give it a 2-star rating. I thought about going in the middle and doing 2.5, but I'm a little more on the negative side than I am in the middle. So I'm going 2 stars for this one. But I would love to hear from other people. All the time I have an opinion on films and people show up in the comments. They tell me what they think and they tell me why, and I can see their points. And sometimes it actually just changed how I feel about films. Devil's Bath being a big one from earlier this year. Not that I didn't enjoy it at first. I did enjoy it, but I enjoyed it even more when some people kind of talked to me about it. But anyway, yeah, 2 stars. Go ahead and put it in the comments if you've seen this film. We can talk spoilers. That's totally fine. Do me a favor, hit subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. I appreciate that. Thumbs up on the video if you want to help me with that algorithm. You can hit the notification bell button if you want to know when I'm getting new videos out. And you can sign up for a membership if you want. There's a link in the description, just if you're interested. But thank you so much for taking your time to watch this. And until next time, keep it brutal.